Okay, so in the previous video, I went through some menu work. I was doing this hello bit here, and then insert cell now, and press when ready, and all this sort of stuff. And then I was doing the, trying to separate the different menus in the loop. But now we actually need to get user input. And I've not really been looking forward to this because this is quite difficult to explain. There are lots of different ways to get user input, but this is the way that I learned to do it about 9 months ago. It actually took me about an hour or something to come up with an algorithm that would work, and it's actually simple to write, but it's quite difficult to explain. But anyway, I'll type it out and we'll go from there. So if digital read switch pin equals low and previous switch state, let's say, equals high, then do something. So Control T, Control S. Then down here, previous switch state equals this. In fact, we'll have a bool up here. Bool current switch state equals digital read, and then we'll use this instead. So previous switch state equals current switch state. Right. I'll tidy this up and I'll attempt to explain this. Right. We also need another variable up here. So previous switch state bool previous switch state is, we're going to say high to start with. Right, that's because when the program first starts, this state will be high because it's a pull up. I don't know where it says here, but it's input pull up, so it will be high. Oh, there you go, input pull up. So input pull up means, in fact, I've explained it before in previous videos, but input pull up means be high by default and only be low when the user specifically makes it low. Anyway, so in the loop we've got bool current switch state, and as you can see here, it gets the digital state of the switch pin, and by default it's pull up, so it'll be high. So if we don't press the switch, that will always be high. So bool current switch state will always be high, and it says here, if current switch state equals low and the previous switch state is high, then do what we want to do. So do whatever. And then I've got set the previous switch state to current switch state. So I thought I'd try and explain now. What the hell is going on here? What is this? Well, what it is if I click a mouse button here, for example, a very short click. Now, as humans, we think that's instantaneous, don't we? If I just click again, it was done in an instant. But on an electronic level, that is not at all instant. What actually happens, if I slow this right down, if I was to slow it down and record it, it would be like this. Press, hold, let go. You know, if I was to slow it down by 100 times. And actually, when I would press this mouse button or press the tact switch, what I'd actually be doing is pressing the tact switch, holding it down for an amount of milliseconds, and then releasing it. And this holding it down for a few milliseconds, that's a problem electronically. And the reason why it's a problem is because this loop runs faster than the amount of time which it takes you to press and release a mouse button or a tact switch. So what would happen is it would loop through, it'd say, alright, is the switch pressed? Yes it is. Do whatever we need to do, and then carry on. And then the next iteration of the loop, is the mouse button switch, is the switch pressed or is the mouse button down? Yes it is. And it would do it again. But every iteration, if this is a millisecond, it could potentially do it 50 times or so. If I was to hold the mouse button down, or just click it like that, I'd probably actually hold it down for about at least 10 milliseconds. And therefore, if this had a delay of a millisecond, this loop, I'd repeat this bit of code 10 times. So in order to prevent that, I've got this previous and current concept here. So what I do is, if the current switch state, so if now the switch state, and this is like on a millisecond level, is low. So if the button is pressed and the previous switch state is high, in other words, if it's just immediately been pressed just right now, this millisecond, then do whatever. But what will happen in the next iteration, I will still have the mouse button down or the attack switch down, but if you see, it won't fire again because it's saying here, current switch state is low, which it will be because it's still held down. The previous switch state is high, so if that's low and that's high, then do the code. But the previous switch state will also be low because at this point I'll still have my finger on the tact switch. And then when this thing releases, then what will happen is that this will read high. Again, this won't qualify because the current switch state will be high. So it'll go down here, it'll say previous switch state is high, and then from then on it won't work until you press the button down again. So I'm not entirely happy with my explanation there, but hopefully it makes sense. Just to keep it simple, I suppose, for those who didn't understand, just do it this way. Just do it this way. Right, so Control T, Control S. Now, that's the first part of being able to capture user input. The next thing we need to do is to make this loop repeat itself an amount of time. But over here, you can see that it says delay 1000 milliseconds, and that's far too long a delay to be useful to us. And the reason for that is because you could press a button and release it in less time than the second. So really, this needs to be probably, I don't know, 5 milliseconds maybe, 10 milliseconds. I think the standard for human interface devices may be about 50, but I'm not too sure. So I'm going to go for 10, well, let's say 5 milliseconds. So this loop is now going to repeat every 5 milliseconds, and I'm not sure if this is going to work, but let's give it a go. Now what we want to do is, at this point, we need to use the serial console to be sure that the thing's going to work. So let's say serial.println I don't know, fired or something like that. Fired. Okay, and now I'll need to compile this and upload it. So I'll just press Control and U. Okay, so I've uploaded this, and let's get the serial console up. So Control Shift and M. And now if I just go over to the device and press the tact switch, what we should see is fired, and then release. So it won't matter if I hold it, it will only still do it once. So yeah, there you go. I've actually still got my finger on it. I'll let go, do it again. Yeah, so it only fires once, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want. So this basically gives us the ability to get user input, and to get user input correctly as well. So that's a good start, and now it's time to carry on.